Very much, Deborah, and our organizers for inviting me. And today I would like to uh, give this presentation, which I dropped a paper that focus on the AI, the antitrust in AI infrastructure, and I'm trying to focus on like data and also computational resources, and to give some informations regarding how these three jurisdictions, the EU, the US, and also China, they're trying to put their regulatory efforts and also enforcement efforts in this topic of AI. So my paper and also my presentation is structured in these 5 sections. So today I'm trying to focus on more of the antitrust risk and also the regulatory responses. I think the topic of AI has been has raised a lot of discussions in these 2 years because of the generative AI, especially the Open AI has published their foundation models like ChatGPT 3, ChatGPT 4, which has led to the big discussions on how the AI could increase the innovation in our society and how they will bring also some risk and challenges for the both the regulations and also for the future for the future of us. So with regarding this quick developments in this AI markets, and we see that there are already some discussions of how this AI will lead to the maybe harm of the foundation rights of us, and also lead to some liability and security issues, but for the risk in the competition law and how they will lead to the dynamic competitions or the harm of the competitions has not been fully explored. So with the winner takes all happens in the digital platforms. So I'm trying to see that whether or not there are already some regulatory efforts that has been already put forward. With regarding to the process of the foundation models and also the most of the AI models, we see that there are 3 key inputs: the vast amount of data, computational resources, and also the AI talent, AI experts. So under the bit of competition law, I will focus on the first 2 elements, which is the data and the computational resources. So the research goal in this paper is trying to explore how the competitive dynamic has surrounding with these 2 critical inputs, and also to assess the regulatory responses between among these 3 jurisdictions. So first of all, I'll try to explore the market structure regarding these 2 inputs. Firstly, regarding the data, we see my research showed that the role of data in digital platforms are not fully similar happens in the AI markets. For example, in digital platforms, there are lots of discussion that how the platforms and also platform operators, they collect lots of data from the users and trying to profile users and then targeted these users with their services and also advertisements. In this perspective, network effects has been important. But when we look in the AI markets, we see that because the development of AI models and AI services has been in the supply chain with pre-training and also fine-tuning and also the end of to deploying of these services to users, which means that data may be used in the different way in this supply chain, in this value chain. And here we also see that in the development of AI, data are also used in different categories like the text and also images, videos. All of these categories of data has been contributed to the develop of AI models and services. With regarding to the pre-training of these AI models, we see that for these developers, maybe they don't need to have this personalized data in this phase. The quality of data shows more importance, and also in this phase, the network effects is not significant compared to the platform. For example, if one consumers they try to use the ChatGPT's you use OpenAI's ChatGPT 4 will not directly lead to other consumers to pay for the services of OpenAI. And then when we're trying to see the fine-tuning phase of the AI development, we see that in this phase, maybe specialized data sets are quite important because here the foundation models they need to be targeted for the specific economic services and also tasks. And also in this phase, the data feedback loop are quite important. For example, when we see that Duolingo, they also use use OpenAI's ChatGPT model, but they will use like data of languages and also some voices, videos, trying to make the specific task to help people with their language learning. And with regarding how the AI developers they can collect of the data, we see that there are actually three sources: public sources, synthetic data, and also proprietary sources. From these resources, I'm trying to explore how these resources can be accessed by AI developers in their phase of uh, pre-training of models and also fine-tuning of models. For the pre-training phase, we see that most of foundation model, most of AI developers currently, they actually rely on a huge amount of data that's provided by public sources. For example, OpenAI has announced that they relies on the public data sites and also try to have some web crawling of the data from this website. However, we also see that there are some literature and also reports given by the scientists, which announce that this kind of public sources data could be exhausted in 2024 or in 2032, which means that there are limited resources maybe in the future to provide innovations for the AI development. And here I try to emphasize of public available data because when I try to find out how these models like the Google's Gemini's xCloud and also OpenAI's ChatGPT, how they collect data, I found that they all announced that they use public available data, but actually the scope of this public available data has been defined by these big tech companies other than some specific regulators or some authorities give this definition. So in this perspective, there are lots of there are lots of like differences between their scopes of this public available data that we can also discuss it later. And then for the second category of synthetic data, although it's more easier for the startups and also AI developers to access to these categories. But however, there is a risk of model collapse, which means that this kind of data, maybe they are not reliable. They could cause some of risk to develop foundation models and AI services. So this category still need to be developed with the advanced technologies in the future. And then because of the limitations of public sources and the risk the risk that rising from the synthetic data, we saw that there are more reliance on the proprietary sources. In this perspective, we also see that big tech companies they have more advantages because they already collect the data from their ecosystem, and also they have more monies that they can pay for the priority sources. Then regarding the fine-tuning size, which means that's a specific task of the models, we see that priority sources maybe heavily relies by this by the AI developers, which means that they need a narrow and task-specific data size to make their task more specific. And in this perspective, the human feedback is also collected to improve the results and to improve the services. So after understanding of data, I'm now going to the market structure of the computational resources. And for this perspective, we see that AI developers, they access to the computational resources also from the two sources. One is a hardware, for example, the AI chips. But this sources is quite expensive, and also the AI chips and also hardwares is quite limited. The sources is quite limited for the AI developers because we see that NVIDIA has announced that they're trying to provide more chips, but the demand side is more. And also in the hardware, we also realize that NVIDIA, which has already holds the over 80% of market share. Then if the AI developers, they couldn't afford or they don't have the access to the hardware, they can also buy the cloud computing services, which means that the users, they can remotely access to these sources and the cost will be lower than hardware. However, these sources has been concentrated by a small number of big techs. It has been it's noted that Amazon, Microsoft, and also Google, these three companies, they hold over 60% of the global market share for the cloud computing services. So both of these two sources has shown highly concentrated with the big tech companies. They're trying to control all the sources to develop the AI. After this kind of understanding of the market structure, I'm trying to explore what happens with the relevant risk that happens with this market structure. Here, I would like to firstly emphasize that we say the AI development definitely could lead to dynamic efficiency and also directly give us some give the society the competitive effects. For example, we see that there are more discussions that how OpenAI could challenge the dominant position of the Google in search engine area. But however, the structure that we say how it's concentrated by the big tech companies could also lead to potential harms and also lead to antitrust risk that I would like to analyze from three perspectives: the entry barriers, the leveraging, and also the partnership, the vertical integrations through the partnership. And firstly, regarding the entry barriers, we already see that the big tech company, including like Google, Amazon, they are quite active in this AI supply chain, from the provide of the foundation models and to the end of deploying these services to users. For these supply chains, they try to have more have their strong positions to collect data and to use this large data set to develop their own AI services. And also, we found that the big tech, they are quite motivated to increase this kind of entry barriers because they want to hold their dominance in the AI related markets. And there are also some evidence show that how these big tech companies, they're trying to increase the entry barriers. For example, from the data perspective, there are evidence show that the X has announced that they would like to start to license the access of their database, which means that you are not freely access to the X database with all these Twitter posts. And also, certain big techs, they have also trying to restrict the data access from the web crawling. As we has already mentioned, that web crawling is a very important sources for the AI developers to get to access to data from the public sources. And also from the computational resources perspective, the NVIDIA has already, as mentioned, that NVIDIA has already 80% of the market share in this AI chip markets, in hardware markets, which means that they control the distribution of this AI hardware. And also because the big tech companies, they already control of the cloud computing services, which means that they can also shape the AI related market as they want. For example, we see that Microsoft has already have the collaborations with OpenAI. And also there is a data show that the 70% of new entrants, startups, they state that they face the difficulties to access these two inputs, the data and the computational resources. So with all this evidence, we can try. I'm trying to argue that this increased entry barriers could be led by the big tech companies, and which could also prevent the competitors. And then the second risk regarding the leveraging. For this perspective, I'm trying to say that the big tech companies, because they already hold a lot of sources like the data and computational resources, so they can easily use their data collect from the platforms to use it to develop develop their AI models and AI services. For example, X has said that they use the user's data to develop their AI services. And also Microsoft use their positions of the use their control of clouding computing services to have the collaboration partnership with OpenAI. And the third risk regarding the vertical integration, which I have already emphasized for several times, that's Microsoft and Google, they use their control power in these two inputs and trying to advantage and to create their own AI services. And with all these three risks, I'm trying to explore how these three jurisdictions, they're trying to put their efforts in regulations or the enforcement. Because these three jurisdictions, the EU, US, and China, they are like they are leaders in the AI development and also the regulation and also AI regulations. So firstly, in the EU, we see that I'm trying to assess whether or not the DMA could be used to regulate the relevant risks that I have already discussed. First of all, we see that if we use the DMA, there should be designated gatekeepers and also the core platform services. And in this perspective, there consider the NVIDIA and OpenAI, this kind of company has not been designated, so there still need to be more practical efforts. And also in the second scenario, if there is no designated gatekeeper, if the big tech company has already been designated as gatekeepers, and also the services that's embedded with the AI services, which could also lead to the enforcement of DMA, which could be lead to the enforcement of Articles 5 and 6 of the DMA, but there still need to be efforts. And then, although the AI Act refers to the existing of the EU competition law, but there is no specific provisions that protect the competition. And also, I list some of enforcement or some practical investigations that's given by the Commission. If you are interested in that, could also be found from my paper. And then in the U.S. perspective, I'm trying to explore how the U.S. trying to regulate the antitrust risk in this perspective. First of all, there is no comprehensive federal legislations for this AI market. Although we see that the Biden executive orders trying to give some directions to regulate the AI, but we see that the Trump trying to shift the direction to the other side, trying to protect and to establish the leadership in this AI development, which could also have the impact on the future enforcement of the U.S. And then in China, there is also a regulations which is the interim measures trying to regulate the generative AI. And in this regulations, there are at least 3 articles and related. Firstly, Article 4, which give the principles that's how this AI risk can be regulated from these regulations. And then Article 6 trying to encourage the AI development, which is quite different compared to the EU's measure. And then Article 7 trying to impose obligations on the AI providers and concerning of the data. So from this perspective, this regulation could give the direction of how to regulate, but unfortunately, there is no concrete rules that could give the specific idea that each of risk how to enforce or how to regulate. And also because China has revised the anti-monopoly law, and also there is a publish of the platform guidelines related to the digital markets. So these two competition laws and policies could also in the future be used in the AI market. And also there are antitrust enforcements in the AI markets regarding the NVIDIA and also Google's measure. So in my paper, I also give some comparative analysis between these 3 jurisdictions, but due to the time limitations, I'm trying to put all this comparison in this conclusion. Firstly, we see that both data and computational resources are highly concentrated and controlled by big tech companies. The EU and China, they have regulations trying to show the direction or show their attitude how to regulate the antitrust risk in AI markets. However, these two jurisdictions actually applies different strategies. For example, the EU's strategy on the regulation and also the promotes innovation separates in the different documents. For example, innovation is obviously be in the EU policies, but in China, we show that how the legislators and also competition authorities they try to integrate these two these two directions in the same document. In contrast, we see that the US, there is no legislations or regulations, but most of the policies or their directions is trying to foster the innovation in the AI development. So my assessment would be that there is no consensus among the three jurisdictions, but on how it should looks like. But at this early stage, we see that how they take the cautious attitude and how they already understand there could be the potential risk. So thank you very much for your attention, and I'm looking forward to your question and discussions.
We have no first for a challenge.
And you do kind of a very interesting presentation. So AI is a very hot topic right now. So we got the data protection. I have a question. As we know, big data are basically owning all the informations and datas from the market. So I wonder if the data from the European users are all actually stored in the big tech's headquarters. They have the center to store all the data. Where it, for you, most of them actually from US. So where it caused any issues of the data protection? This my first question, and then the second question is, as you previously mentioned, the data collection and used by AI and the normal digital platforms are very different. I make an example, say Duolingo collecting data with OpenAI, but they use it to improve the language study for users. But actually, don't they use it also for improving the advertisement, personalized advertisement? Now, what's the difference between these two? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. Regarding the first question on the data protection, I would say that first of all, I do say that from non-EU scholars, I do say that there is there is a big challenges in the EU that most of this data actually has been collected by American big tech companies and also maybe saving in the data center of the Amazon, Google's. So yeah, I also found that in the EU there are also some policies in the I couldn't say it's like an industry policy, but maybe the developing maybe the economic policies then trying to establish the AI the infrastructures in the EU. For example, there are in my paper I noticed that there are like six the, there are six maybe data centers and also several computational centers that has been established by the EU to trying to collect their data at the territory of the EU instead of in the US. I say that the EU has already realized that it's a big problem and they're trying to use the public policies and trying to use their regulatory tools to in the future to force the big tech, the American companies to leave the data and also leave these sources at the EU. Then they can also use this kind of sources to develop the European AI services and the European AI companies in the future. So I do see that this should be like a big success, not a big success, but maybe development at this point. And also in the U.S. and also in China, there are also some policies that the governments would like that the governments are planning to establish their data centers with their cloud computing services, like the Trump has already approved for some for the OpenAI to establish some OpenAI to start strategies named I forgot the name. It's like the Star Plan or something. And in China, for this Chinese regulation, the government has also encouraged encourage the companies that they could encourage the company they could to use the data that's saved in the data center and also the cloud computing centers to develop their AI services. So I think in these three jurisdictions there are some developments to promote their own AI developments by their data center and also the infrastructure. So this is my answer for the first question. And second one, regarding the Duolingo. In my research, actually, as I mentioned, that the data plays a different role in the different phase of the AI development. For the development of the foundation models, this kind of data they don't need to be personalized, but in the fine-tuning phase, this kind of data sets should be personalized. And the Duolingo, Duolingo actually use the foundation model of OpenAI, which means that the OpenAI has used the general data to establish models, and then Duolingo trying to specific these models to be some economic task, like the language learning, language improving. So in this perspective, the Duolingo actually uses specific data. So it's a different phase of the models development. So in this perspective, we also see that you are correct that Duolingo maybe also use the collected data to develop their advertisements, and also they will collect users' data to promote the human feedback and then to improve their services. In this perspective, definitely the personalized data will be used by AI services, and also there will be there will be issue that could be regulated by the current regulations like the DMA and also like the regulations in China. So I hope I answer your question.
Big story. I'll be using Duolingo Premium for last night. I reached 450 days in Dutch. Later before I can say a couple sentences. I'll take David's contribution and Georgiana compliments all together. So please go ahead.
Well, first of all, thank you for the presentation. I think I have two possible contributions. First is I think it links to previous demand on data protection. My kids, because it concerns data protection regimes, because if about the very relevance of data for the let's say AI stack, the development of AI, it might be interesting to see what are the data protection rules. It might even strengthen your argument that having access to all data and data protection rules prevent you from sharing it, what's strengthening higher entry barriers. So that's the first. And the second one is thinking about possible developments of laws, rules on AI. Might be interesting to have a short look at how the development of rules on digital regulation has come about, for example, in the US, but there's still now also DMA. I see there is a DMA, Australia, and so it might be interesting just to see what the considerations are there to pick up the new.
Yes, thank you so much. I really enjoyed your presentation, and congrats on finalizing a paper on it. And I think I'll just mention two things just for the consideration of time. The first is that you have a really good understanding of the underlying technology, and you lead with the real world problems or your real world observations around how data is used. And I think that's quite a strength because well, we tend to make generalizations about how markets work, but you're very specific, including that feedback loops, for instance, are different at different stages of the process. So I think your knowledge of the technology and the business world is really going to help in a lot of the research that you do. And the second one, I want to congratulate you on mastering not one legal framework, but three, which, as I showed in my speech, one legal framework is not necessarily well organized. So I think that's quite ambitious, and you managed to navigate it quite well.
All right, I'll give you one comment and give you a chance to react. To go on what Georgiana said, and looking at the real world, you've never heard that OpenAI and Perplexity are positioning themselves or potentially acquiring Pro if the DOJ is to break up UO. Knowing that there are different approaches, EU, China, and the US, it will be quite interesting to kind of forecast what will be the dynamics, what will be the competition, and it will enable the companies then to access the data, maybe by collecting data on the browsers that they can use to fine-tune the model. So it would be kind of maybe, very short paper you could write, a bit futuristic, which could be something that may be unstable. I can get a chance to react, and then I'll move on to the next speaker.
Okay, thank you very much for all your suggestions. And firstly, to David, I would say that actually two of your aspects is directly related to the comments given by the reviewer of my paper. One is about the data protection, and I'm trying to think about how to make the data protection related to my research about this kind of data access. And I also feel that it's quite difficult because the GDPR, I feel that this is sometimes I was thinking that this is a different area compared to the competition law, and also it's sometimes hard to connect each other. And when I present my paper, I said that there is a concept of publicly available data, and I was thinking that so maybe there are also some definitions in the data protection law, and maybe I should also try to integrate these two areas together and to figure out. And also your give the idea about the how these three jurisdictions they are trying to regulate, and I think it's very interesting because I also trying to at the beginning, I try to avoid to give the conclusion. My feelings that the EU is more harsh. It regulates the AI, and the US is trying to develop the AI to be the leadership of the global AI services, and China trying to stay in the middle to see which way is better. But my reviewer also said that you should give some clear conclusions about your ideas. Now I'm trying to think about how to make this kind of idea and feelings to be used in my paper. So thank you very much. And Jadrina, I thank you very much for your compliments. I think that for this kind of topic, it's difficult to think about how this technology works. And also I put a lot of time to understand the economic structures and also technologies behind of the AI. So it takes time. So thank you very much for your compliments. And
it's very short. It's very short. They have a presentation where Martin Swoop this morning who said that the ACM will focus on on consumer lock-in, particularly discussing competition firms that are relevant to competitors and not so much consumers. Is this an area that is outside of your scope altogether? Is it irrelevant, or do you think there's still some merit to the fact that the ACM, for example, is focusing on lock-in type problems when they're looking at base and digital markets?
Thank you very much for your question. Actually, currently, from my perspective, I haven't seen this kind of logging problem because I feel that in the AI services, because the market is still developing. So it's that some consumers they use OpenAI, but if they found that DeepSeek is quite useful and it's more efficient, they will quickly transform to another services, another AI models. So and also because now this kind of network effects is not such significant in this AI markets because consumers sometimes they need to pay for the AI services like the ChatGPT 4, but this could not definitely lead to other consumers to also subscribe these services. And also in this perspective, this kind of locking and also networking effects, I think it's not currently at this at this AI markets, I didn't see this kind of big effects actually. But maybe it's because of my knowledge. I would like to say that in the future, maybe this kind of business model they could develop and they will try to lock the consumers in their markets maybe in the future. Okay, thank you.
To add a bit of complexity to the subject, when looking at the US, according to Stanford HAI, you have, of course, the federal level, but also the state level.
Exactly.
And there is
California.
900 regulations of AI at the state level that will be voted by their the state congresses, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it had another extra layer of complexity to the story. On that, thank you so very much. Give